Hi, Andy and Robbie. How are y'all doing today?
Hey
Good. How are
Trey,
you?
good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm so excited to chat with you both about Upload season 2 because the first season coming out during the pandemic, early months of the pandemic, and a time when we definitely needed something, to make us laugh. It's so good to have almost 2 years later another season of this great show. So Andy, I will start with you first. Because Nora actually spends a lot of the season outside of the confines of, Horizon and Lakeview, both literally and figuratively, because she's literally outside, at least in the first few episodes. What can you tease about her journey this season? Because kind of what we saw in season 1 was kind of her juxtaposed with what Nathan was going through. But this season, we kind of see she does her own thing a lot. So what can you tease about what we'll see with Nora this season?
Well, Nora, we start the season with Nora in the Lud camp and really recovering from having her heart broken by Nathan. And it's so great because I think the best thing to do when you are, have heartbreak is just to step away and process. so so she really gets to do that. And she does meet someone new, which is interesting, which I don't recommend jumping into one thing after someone else. Don't do that, ladies, or anyone. But I think this season, what's so exciting is seeing her really coming into her own and her own power as a leader. And she gets an opportunity with her work that I don't think she knew that she could do or would be even able to have that opportunity. So there's this growth in her of where she starts to see herself as more than what she's been. And I think it's a beautiful moment of her really coming into her power.
Yeah, definitely. As the season goes on, no spoilers. I definitely feel like she kind of goes through this journey of her own. Actually, all of the characters, I think, this season, as the first season seems to set the landscape for everything, introduce you to this world, but we get to see, more development this season for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Robbie, for you, season 1, of course, ended on this cliffhanger where it seems Nathan is stuck with Ingrid again as she decides to, implant herself in Lakeview and the afterlife. What can you tease about, Nathan's relationship with Ingrid this season and how this impacts his relationship with Nora and much more?
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, you know that he wanted to say "I love you too" when Nora said it, but he was frozen and out of
Mm-hmm.
data. and then and then Ingrid shows up, and that is like doomsday scenario for him. He had finally, felt like he had gotten away. He moved to 2 gig. He was on his own, and she shows up, and Nora's gone, and he's in this weird place where he doesn't know what to do. And, I think that he kind of looks at this as I need to find Nora and I need help to do that. And even though Ingrid's not doesn't know she's helping him, he's just buying time to try and find her. But, as you see, time goes by and he can't find her, and, life moves on, and he tries to make the best of a bad situation. And I think what's interesting is you see Nathan go through such a journey in the first season from, his character arc of being this kind of selfish, materialistic guy, and learning from Nora and growing and becoming, more of a real human being. And you start to wonder, maybe Ingrid can do the same thing. Maybe she can grow in Lakeview. Maybe that's what it takes. But I think that he's probably still in love with Nora, and he's probably going to do everything he can to try and get her back. But we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. We will see. Well, thank you both so much for this chat. And I can't wait for everyone to see the show. And congrats in advance on the launch of the new season.
Thanks,
Thanks, Trey.
Trey.
And Zainab, I'll start with you first, as Alicia has a bigger role in Horizon during the season. What can viewers expect from that aspect of her, as well as how this kind of impacts her relationship with Nora?
You know, they always say like when big changes happen, it doesn't just affect you, it affects the people around you. And you're gonna see that. You know, you're gonna see how it affects this friendship that we kind of came to like really appreciate in first season, you know. I love the growth that Alicia has because she's not just comic relief. She's not just support. Now we're getting like insight into like who she is, why she does what she wants, and what Alicia wants. I don't think in season one I played a very specific role that serviced someone else's wants, you know? And I think season two, you get to see like a glimpse of like, oh, what does this character want? And do we want that for her? And I think the audience does. So I'm excited for people to see all that happens to Alicia.
I mean, I know I wanted that. When I saw it, I was like, yes, more Alicia. Like, I don't know if we needed to, like, campaign for more Alicia, but I'm glad it happened. I'm glad it happened. Regardless, because I was ready to write a letter to be like, hey, we need more.
Well, thank you.
And Kevin, next for you, we see a lot more of Luke's interpersonal relationships this season too. I feel like season one, it kind of just introduced this whole concept because it is world building. And then we just got to introduce like the characters and the people who make up this world. But now we kind of see kind of what everyone has going on. So specifically, I want to see what you could tease about both Luke's relationship with Nathan as well as his relationship with Alicia as well.
Yeah, I think that you see, because there was a successful social campaign for more Luke, there were a lot of letters written. That, right?
Kevin wrote himself.
Dear Amazon. Yeah. There's a lot more of like, I guess, like the heart of Luke in this a little bit more. You also see him kind of break away from his like sycophant kind of stuff, like where he's kind of wandering after Nathan all the time. He kind of checks him a couple times. And then I also love that you kind of get more of his military backstory. So there's kind of like a natural deepening that I think is going on with pretty much every character here, because like you said, Trey, there's a lot of world building. It's a lot of world building is required. When we did the pilot and had shot the first season, I don't know, Zainab, if you had this experience of like how difficult it was to like describe the show to people who hadn't seen it, because it all sounded very serious. They're like, wait, it's a comedy? So it really took people watching it, I think. So that requires a lot of world building. So from there, I think we were able to kind of broaden it and kind of send these characters on different journeys.
Journeys, literally and figurative journeys this season. Yes. And I'm so excited for everybody to check it out. Well, thank you both so much, and congrats in advance on the launch of this new season.
Thank you
so much, man.
Thank you. Season one ended on a cliffhanger when we find out that Ingrid is at Horizon and is in the afterlife. What could you tease about Ingrid and her motivations and everything that's going to happen in season two as she's reunited with Nathan?
Yeah. So I think initially going into it, she feels like this is the solution. Of course, this is like, obviously the only thing that was keeping us apart was virtual distance. And if she could close that gap, then everything's fine. And I think what's so satisfying about the journey that she goes on this season, especially, is seeing that even if she's in close proximity to Nathan, there can still be an emotional distance between them. And how's she going to deal with that, right? And that she thinks she's got it figured out, but really she's nowhere near, and has to do some self-evaluating and figure out. She's got some great moments of seeing where she's gone wrong and what she's done and how she's been selfish at times too, and totally pushed him away. So yeah, that's a little teaser of what she goes through. Just to start.
It just started.
Yeah.
And Owen, for you, because season one was filmed pre-pandemic but came out during the pandemic, and I'm thinking like amid all of these philosophical thoughts and conversations that we've had during the past 2 years, did this allow you to reflect on this new season any differently as both an actor on the show and as a writer?
That's interesting. That's a great question. I think that as a writer, I think it was very interesting as because the writing room shifted to Zoom like how we're doing now instead of being with it, and I maybe prefer that because it's like when you're in a room, you're kind of pitching it, and it is very fun, you kind of play off each other. But I do feel like you may get a little more work done on Zoom, surprisingly, because it's like, all right, we're going to close the laptops and we're going to write 100 ideas, and then we're going to come back and it's like usually you don't write it, like you're very focused. There's no social distraction, which is not. I mean, it's kind of like saying like all the fun human parts of the writer's room get cut off. So much, more work, beep, boop, beep, boop. But yeah, we get a lot more done. So I feel like, yeah, I guess on that sense, it was a lot. It was very, we get more opportunity for more ideas. So I think because of that, especially with this show, you need to be really focused because there's 90,000 genres. It's a murder mystery, and it's a romance, and it's a sci-fi, and it's a satiric comedy, and so you really need to lock those down. So I think that with the Zoom, it may have helped to focus making sure we cracked all those correctly. And yeah, so I think it helped us focus. So that was a positive about COVID, but I don't want to say any positives about COVID because it's not been a positive, but that was a little rainbow after the storm. I don't know.
Yeah. Silver lining.
They're a little silver lining. Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of how, we're thinking about, I'm working remotely, but going back to the office and thinking okay, well, maybe I do get work done better at home without the parameters, but you're taking the fun part out of work.
Yeah, the actual enjoyable part of anything.
Yes. Well, thank you both so much for chatting with me, and I can't wait for everyone to see season 2 of Upload. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So much.
Josh, I will start with you first, as your character has an expanded role in this season of the show. Tell me, how is it like to dive more into the character and work with this cast, as well as where you think the storyline will take Ivan as he goes throughout the season?
I think Ivan's a really fascinating aspect to this world, just because he really lies in between the Ludds, who are kind of like the hippies, the naturists, and Lakeview and Horizon, which is sort of like the height of tech, kind of like Silicon Valley sort of thing. And he's a guy that really just sort of serves his own whims. And I feel like that's honestly where a lot of us would lie.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And still do. And I think he'll continue to push and represent that population of people in the future stories for Upload.
Yeah. And Andrea, Lucy is one of my favorite characters just because I just love some of her one-liners that are just so hilarious. I'm just like, what? Almost after every line she says. So I wanted to ask, one, what's your favorite part about playing Lucy? And what's a side of her that you think is explored this season that wasn't explored in season 1?
Well, I love playing her because she's so naughty. And she's always up to no good. And there's nothing more fun than playing like a person who's up to no good and doesn't feel bad about it. Like she really has no ethical conflicts whatsoever. She just doesn't want to be caught. That's her big thing. But mostly she's feels totally fine and justified, like watching men in the shower and spying on people like that. And that is really fun to play, I gotta say. And it's not every day that one of those roles comes along. So I am really grateful for it. And then what was your other question?
What's something that you think you were able to explore with Lucy in this season that you didn't get the chance to last season?
Oh, I guess like maybe more of her desperation. Like she's sort of desperate to be friends with Zainab's character, and she's like kind of desperate to like just be in the mix of things. So she has a weird quality of like being in love. She loves being in charge, but at the same time, she's really desperate. So that's like an interesting thing to play.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you both so much for your time today, and I can't wait for everyone to see the new season of Upload. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Trey.
Okay.
Bye. Hi, Greg. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm so excited to chat with you about season 2 of Upload. You know, the first season came kind of, I guess, early-ish pandemic when we were still trying to figure out so many things. And then nearly 2 years later, here we are with finally more Upload. And speaking of the pandemic, you know, season 1 was shot pre-pandemic, but just happened to come out while we're in the midst of everything. And amid all of the, you know, philosophical thoughts and conversations that have happened over the past 2 years that have, you know, allowed us to think about things differently. Considering this is a show that's about afterlife and the death, you know, specifically, did the pandemic allow you to think differently about how you wanted to approach this season, anything you want to do in this season in any particular way?
Well, boy, that's a lot of interesting questions. I mean, I think that that the pandemic showed us a lot about technology, and that we're sort of using it to connect in a way, way more than before. But there's pluses and minuses. You know, the absence. People also really feel the absence of human connection, and so the show is so much about a virtual world that we create with technology, and but it's also about fairness and who gets to participate in the virtual heaven, and it's about sort of capitalism and, you know, the charging of it, and there's a lot of things involved with the distribution of the vaccines, and, you know, there's like a lot of issues that came up in the pandemic that I feel like we're talking about in the show, you know, and part of that is just when you set something in the future. In the near future, it's only 15 years from now in the show, you know, the way you figure out what to write about is you kind of look at what technology is just in a lab somewhere that they just invented, and then you imagine what would happen if it was widespread. And so the idea that the world catches up to the show pretty quickly is not that unusual. But some of the attitudes, like Nora having this big argument so that Nathan will not throw himself into the torrent. And she's really trying to get him, this is in the pilot, she's really trying to get him to use whatever means necessary to just live, to be able to, you know, persist in the world so he can talk and think and everything. Like that seemed to come up a lot in the pandemic too, with people that just didn't want to use the stuff that we actually developed to cure themselves, you know, and
yeah. And the season 1 ended on a cliffhanger, as we see, you know, Ingrid somehow has decided to be at Horizon and in the afterlife. What can you tease about her motivations specifically, and just kind of like these kind of more so the philosophical questions that, you know, come into mind as we go throughout the season? Because it's more so, it was kind of like this murder mystery in the first season, so to speak, which, you know, kind of trails through season 2 as well. But, you know, it's just a lot, it's like a bigger picture, I think. I want to know that you like think about that as well when crafting it.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad you got that sense, because you know, I feel like season 2 is trying to expand the world, open it out. It's part of the world building that we did, where we're kind of coming up with this. And you always want to me, you always want to be adding to it so that the audience has a sense of like falling into something more and more, you know, wide and expansive and everything. I think with Ingrid, she to me is a very funny character, and so much about the digital afterlife is, or like part of the theme is giving the characters a second chance to become better people by using this, right? So in season 1, Nathan really grew as a person, and the opportunity is now presented to Ingrid if she wants to use it to grow. And
the thing that I love about Ingrid is she's got a really strong vision for how she wants life to turn out. And, you know, she wants to be with Nathan, and she has a certain vision of this family that she wants to create. And she's really going to go after it hard. And I love when a character, you know, sometimes makes some shortcuts and ethical problems, but definitely has a vision of where they want to go. So that's why I think she's funny. And of course, the actress Allegra is so great.
Definitely a hoot of a character, for sure. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait for everyone to see this new season of the show.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Thanks so much. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.